Hi there, higher running coach and Hoke athlete Sage Canaday here with another Training Talk Tuesday. I believe this is episode number 59. We're going to talk about running slow to run faster, how to improve your times. And again, I've preached this over the last 15 years as a running coach here on the YouTube. I had a video actually called Run Slow to Get Fast. It's kind of the idea, touching on MAF Method, MAF Method. If you're not familiar with that, I kind of criticize that actually. Some of my talks, 80-20 training, a lot of New Year resolutions, influencers on the social media preaching a good preaching thing. Take your easy days easy. Run slower first, especially if you're just starting out or building your fitness, staying in that aerobic zone and the importance of that. But a lot of people don't touch on the why, and that's what I want to get into in this training talk. So the important thing to think about, whether you're running the 1,500 meter or mile event, or you're running a 5K, those are distance running events, but also marathon mainly, half marathon, marathon, ultramarathon. All these events, 1,500 meters on up, are aerobic events, meaning with oxygen. It's based mainly on stressing your aerobic system, and your success and your relative speed at these events will be tied into your aerobic capacity, VO2 max, but also submaximal things, so to speak. So all the little efficiencies going on in your body with your heart and lungs and blood flow and oxygen delivery, fat burning, those things take time to develop, and those things are going to give you long-lasting speed and strength in these long-distance aerobic-based events. So it makes sense to have the majority of your mileage, the majority of your running training be fairly relaxed, easy, conversational pace. Now, we get into MAF Method, and I criticize the numbers because if you've seen some of my other talks on heart rate training, heart rate varies a lot. It's not just 220 minus your age. It could be for some people. Your heart rate sensor on your watch or on your strap even might be tripping errors. It might be reading your cadence or stride rate. It might just be reading some random number that's not accurate at all. And if you don't know your 100% max heart rate, how are you going to work at 70% of your max heart rate, right? People think they're going hard. Oh, I'm at 100%. I was sprinting. Unless you had a VO2 max test in a lab or some really good hard 3K or 5K all-out race performances, very strategically evenly paced with an accurate heart rate monitor on, you might be a bit off. And if you're 10% off on that heart rate value, then all other values, be it 80% or your lactate threshold or your VO2 max, could be thrown off as well. That's why we always preach conversational pace. If you're going out the door, you're running on these short runs, and you could talk and easily is the key word here, carry on a conversation that your breathing's not so hard, then you're probably in a pretty good aerobic zone, right? Some days you could go more steady than others, but to truly have a recovery day or truly have a zone 1, zone 2 type of day, and again, those zones are going to vary depending on who you're listening to, right? 5-pace zone, 3-pace zone, what's easy recovery, what's moderate aerobic intensity, should be for most people slower than marathon race pace, especially if you're running a marathon under 4 hours and you've done several and you've built up your mileage. Now, the key point of this talk is building up that mileage or volume, because that is what gives you long-term success. So we're not just taking our easy days easy, we're taking them easy because we want to be able to build up higher mileage volume while reducing the risk of getting injured. So just for an example, if we have someone training 50K per week, 31 miles per week that's a good amount. A lot of beginners could work up to that, especially if you check out our free download, higherrunning.com. We have a free aerobic base building plan. If you're a true beginner, you're going to want to start off maybe with run-walk combinations and less than 10 miles a week or 16K per week. And, injuries are always a risk. I'm not going to lie to you, it's a tough sport, but the injuries mainly happen because of the skeletal muscular stress or the pounding, and that's the thing we're trying to balance mainly with the easy runs. So if you're running 50K a week, 31 miles a week, good amount of volume. If eventually over 2 months you're able to get up to 50 miles a week or 80K a week, people start seeing a lot of benefits, and people start qualifying for Boston even. You do have to have some bit of talent or natural ability usually, but even at 60 miles a week or 100K per week in volume, if you have a good plan and you've mixed in a good stimulus, aerobic stimulus, but also some speed work, then a lot of people see big improvements in their half marathon time and marathon times, ultra marathon times, but even also maybe in a 5K time after an appropriate amount of speed training. And again, product plug, business plug, we do sell plans for any service, any distance at higherrunning.com. So check those out, as well as free resources. But that increase in volume usually needs to happen strategically. And this is the key point of the talk here, is that you take your easy days easy, you do this 80-20 training, 80% of your mileage, pretty low intensity, so to speak. If we were going by heart rate, it would be 65 to 75% of max heart rate, but conversational pace, relaxed pace, quite a bit slower maybe than your marathon race pace, especially if you're close to that 3-hour mark. We do that because we don't want to get injured and overtrained, right? So for an example, if you tried to go out the door, let's say you're a low 3-hour marathon runner, maybe about to qualify for Boston, you're putting in 60 miles a week, 100K a week. If you went out the door every single day and tried to run your marathon goal pace, you probably could do it. You could do it, and it would be a great aerobic stimulus, right? Marathon pace is like 99% aerobic, 1% anaerobic. There's really no high levels of lactic acid or anything at marathon pace, but it is a harder intensity than easy pace for people in the 3-hour marathon range and below, for sure. It's a big extreme, significant effort. You really have to dial into it. And depending on the day, it might be harder than others, depending on the length of the run, right? If you're doing a 6-mile run, 10K run versus a 12-mile run or 20K run, it's going to be a lot harder to run 12 miles or 20K at marathon pace. And after several days, you're going to start getting kind of tired and beat up from it probably, right? There might be a headwind, it might be slippery, you might be running in the dark early in the morning or late at night after work or on a treadmill. Could be really hot out depending on where you are. So that stress generally will be too much for most people. And that's why we change the paces up. And that's why we have so many workouts that are much slower or easier than our marathon race pace. And I'm using marathon pace as an example because it's usually not as fast as 5K pace, right? That would be crazy. But it's something that some people actually do try to do. And you theoretically would get a lot of benefits from running marathon pace or half marathon pace every single day. But the heart and lungs, they could take that beating. They could be at a high percentage. You could be, stimulating your aerobic system in a really healthy, good way to improve fitness, especially very quickly in a matter of weeks. But, and this is the big but, the stress, the impact force, the speed work very likely could cause a muscle strain or a skeletal muscular injury that could be a stress fracture, a bone break, getting tendinitis, tendinosis. And the other key thing about running that same steady, hard pace every day and trying to push every day into a little bit of pain is mentally it's very stressful. Mentally, after several weeks maybe of going out the door, especially if you're doing over 50 miles a week or 80K a week, that's a big commitment, big time commitment, big energy commitment for a lot of working people with families and full-time jobs. Very hard to do. You might be losing sleep over it, but mentally it's very draining. Because some days you are going to be very tired. Some days you're going to get some aches and pains and muscle soreness. And if you keep locking the body in to that certain speed, that certain intensity, that very narrow pace range, it's very stressful from a mental standpoint. You're only stimulating the same muscle firing patterns, the same muscle fibers. And maybe you start getting pretty efficient at marathon race pace because you're doing it every day, but you're going to get kind of stale on it. And so if you don't get injured, if you don't get a stress fracture or muscle strain, you're going to be kind of overtrained and burned out probably mentally and physically and kind of stuck in a rut and not able to progress. A lot of people will get in shape doing tempo runs every day. Don't get that wrong. If you're doing moderate, high-intensity aerobic stuff every day, the heart and lungs love that. You get very efficient around that pace. But the injury risk is too great. The overtraining risk is too great. And over long periods of time, you're better off having a variety in your training plan. So that's why in our higher running training plans, we have speed work, we have faster things, we have things that are like sprinting, like strides, we have sometimes hill repeats, we have these tempo run workouts, maybe only once a week, maybe twice a week though, where you're running 10K pace, you're running 5K pace, or you're running half marathon goal pace. Maybe it's a 20-minute tempo run or something like that. So you have a lot of speeds that are faster than marathon race pace sprinkled in, as well as a lot of paces, a lot of higher volume, a lot of long runs probably, 32K long run, 20-mile long run, that are actually quite a bit slower than marathon race pace, but you might have some marathon race pace sprinkled in to those long runs. So always changing things up for that aerobic stimulus, but also to let your body recover from the skeletal muscular stress so that you could help minimize the risk for injury. And that is the true reason why we always preach easy days easy, building up your aerobic base very patiently. If you're increasing mileage, that's already one stress. So adding speed work or high intensity on top of that could be too much stress too soon. People rush into things too fast too soon. That causes injury in a lot of people. You could still get sick or injured for a variety of reasons, but having a higher mileage volume, having more base, and being consistent is really going to give you the long-term benefits and race performances in these long-distance aerobic-based events. That's my training talk on here. Please comment below with questions for future training talk topics and vote up topics that you'd like to hear about. I have a whole library of resources on this channel. Been doing this for 14 years plus on the YouTube, so really appreciate all your support, subscriptions, thumbs up if you like these types of videos. Again, comment below. Really appreciate the Patreon supporters for keeping this channel alive. Check out our training plans at higherrunning.com. Check out Coach Sandy's channel on YouTube up there, as well as my other videos. Search on the playlist if you're looking for a topic. Again, really appreciate your support. Thanks to title sponsor Hoka, keeping the dream alive. Hope you're doing well, and stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions.